Welcome back to our part 2 episode of our panel discussing Roe versus Wade. Hello, everyone.
Hi,
How are
Danny.
y'all?
Good evening.
Dr. Phillip could not make it tonight, so it's just us four. Maybe we can kind of resolve some things. I hope we can. Hey, we made the Arkansas Catholic this week.
I know, isn't that exciting?
You can find it online now at the Arkansas Catholic website. When we ended the show, the last episode, Father was talking about natural family planning. And Angie, you had a question, and we're still going to make you wait on that for a little bit.
It's not really a question, it was just something I had to say about it, but that's fine.
But make sure we're speaking up really good for the producer. And but we were talking about natural family planning, Father, and I think Dr. Jansen had asked you about families planning out, not to have so many children and so forth. Can you elaborate more on natural?
Sure. So at the end of that last episode, you may have heard me say that the natural family planning is the church's middle ground between two extremes, between the extreme of artificial birth control or contraception on the one hand, and then just having Catholics make babies left and right, these big Catholic families. So the church says that, we don't, of course, artificial birth control is immoral, and we'll get into a little bit of why that is. But also the church says that, families or couples don't have to just make as many children as humanly possible. And so that's where this middle ground of natural family planning comes into play. And so, of course, the question on the one extreme is, looking at birth control and artificial birth control. Why is that considered immoral or considered, why is the church against that? And this is something that Pope St. Paul VI kind of definitively taught with his encyclical Humanae Vitae, which came out in the late 60s. It was actually a very controversial encyclical because even a lot of the Pope's advisors, the popes have advisors when they're writing these big documents. The Pope's advisors were split on the issue of whether or not artificial birth control is acceptable. One group of, faithful Catholic advisors was saying, yes, artificial birth control, contraception, the pill, it's all okay, right? And then the other group of advisors were saying, no, this is something that the church needs to be against or does not go along with our beliefs. And so ultimately, of course, it's the Pope's decision, kind of guided by the Holy Spirit, to come out with a definitive teaching. And Paul VI said in this document, Humanae Vitae, that artificial contraception or artificial birth control is in fact immoral and sort of against God's plan for sexuality. Why is that the case? Well, we as Catholics believe that sexuality, sex, has two ends or two goods. There are two goods of sexuality: procreation and unity. So when a married couple engages in the sexual act, the goal of sex and the couple coming together is to both unify and to procreate. And this gets not just to a sort of theology of sexuality, coming from Genesis, be fruitful and multiply, and, leave your mother and father and cleave to your wife. These are kind of the roots of what unity and procreativity, where they come from. But we even see that in the actual sort of biology of the human person. Of course, I wish Dr. Phillip was here to kind of maybe enlighten us a little more, but I've heard, and have seen that from the unitive aspect, that the sexual act, there's an exchange of hormones between the couple that sort of strengthens their union in a very physical way, in a very natural way. So just looking at it from a biological aspect, we see that yes, sexuality is part of that is unifying the couple. And then of course we know that sex is meant for procreation, right? The combination of sperm and egg, produces this human life. And so the church is very much sees that unity and procreativity can never be excluded in the sexual act. It's always a both and. Those are sort of the ends of sexuality, the purpose. Now, other things are goods of sexuality and come forth from sexuality. For example, pleasure, right? But in the end, when we look at the purpose or the end, what the focus of sexuality is, especially in the context of marriage, it is unity and procreativity. So the problem with artificial birth control, contraception, and all these things is it takes away one of those two aspects of sexuality. Namely, it takes away the procreativity of the sexual act in a sort of, kind of not natural way, and the whole idea of artificial birth control is that it is contraception, right? Which you look at that word itself, it's contra conception. Contra coming from the Latin word meaning against, right? It's against conception. In other words, it's against what the sexual act is meant for, right? So it's not so much that natural family planning is, natural. It's kind of, I think of like vegan or vegetarian. It's not that it's natural in that sense, right? It's natural in the sense of it allows the human body to do what it's meant to do, right? To fulfill those that means of the end rather of unity and procreativity. So artificial birth control kind of brings that out of the picture, which is why the church says that it's immoral and that couples shouldn't practice artificial birth control, contraception, because it goes against that unity and procreativity part of the sexual act. So there's, of course, a whole lot more that we could say, but that's kind of the basic understanding of why we say that contraception is immoral in the Catholic Church.
Okay, Father, I've got a question.
Okay.
What if you can not do the natural family planning? A lot of women, their bodies don't do like that. They don't work like that.
Mm-hmm.
What are you supposed to do?
Yeah. I think one of the answers is abstinence.
Abstinence would be great.
Abstinence, right? But the thing about kind of birth control or artificial birth control, the church sees self-control as even greater than birth control. So that's one of the things that we kind of understand when it comes to artificial birth control. And that we talk about being pro-life all the time, and that we're here being pro-life when we're against abortion and everything. But I think part of being pro-life is this openness to life, right? And of course, you could be open to life without practicing NFP or without using artificial birth control. You can just kind of let it happen as it happens, right? You can just wing it, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I think, of course, we think of, of course, being pro-life as having this openness to life. And, if natural, I've never had to go through natural family planning. I'm not married and, I don't have to do that. But I've heard that, modern methods of natural family planning are 98 to 99% effective. Way back, decades ago, they had, these other methods that may not have been as effective or at predicting fertility. But I think there are modern methods that have proven to be much more effective. I was just talking to a couple in the parish about NFP, and for me, doing marriage prep, that's one of the requirements for our marriage preparation process is to have couples do NFP. That used to not be a requirement, I'd say 10 years ago, but the diocese here in Arkansas saw the importance of NFP and promoting natural family planning as an alternative to artificial birth control. And I was preparing this one couple for marriage, and I gave them kind of what the diocese has given me, at least probably the most popular method for NFP. And I was recently talking to them about it, and they said, "Father, that version of NFP was awful. We couldn't
Terrible.
stand it. It was, it was just the worst." And we wanted to be faithful to the church's teaching, and so we did what you had, what you were required, what you required of us. We checked that box off. Then we kind of just threw away all the material because we didn't like it. And we looked at other methods of NFP, and we found one that we really liked, that's really effective, that has really helped us in living out our sexuality as a married couple. So, I'm not an NFP expert by any means. I've heard a little bit about it. I've never had to go through the courses myself, but I'm just thinking of this one couple that has found NFP a very effective way of living out their married life together.
So who teaches NFP here?
Well, at the moment, we really don't have any NFP
Father.
teachers.
Father
And-
does.
does.
Well, and I don't claim credit for teaching NFP here. So all of our classes right now are online.
Yeah.
And I know in Central Arkansas they do have actual couples who are certified to teach NFP, and they do in-person classes. But of course, that hasn't really trickled over to Northeast Arkansas. So we don't really have at the moment couples who are educated enough in NFP to be able to teach it in person to other couples. Something I'd love to happen in the parish, if you're a couple watching this and do practice NFP and would like to do something like that, please get in touch with me, because I think that would be a great opportunity for us here in this area.
I wish we had more dialogue about things that we're discussing right now. And, I think there's a lot of people that are maybe their feelings are hurt. They disagree with the stance the church has taken with being pro-life. And I wish there was a way to reach people that we can, hey, we're not being judgmental against people. God's the judge. We're not the judge. But I wish we had some ministry at St. Paul's to be open to reach people that are hurting like that.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the church actually had it. If you had an abortion, you were considered excommunicated. You could
Mhm.
receive communion automatically.
That was the case at one point.
Yeah, at one point. So
So I guess that's,
Well, I don't know if they ever lifted that kind of punishment, or the fancy church word for it is delict. But I do know that, I don't remember which pope it was, but there's, it may have been John Paul or Benedict, gave all priests the ability to lift that excommunication as long as the person comes to confession. In a certain sense, when you've committed a mortal sin, which abortion is a mortal sin, then you're not allowed to go to communion. You're sort of out of communion with the church in that sense. And of course, coming to confession and confessing mortal sin is what brings you back into communion. So it used to be the case that abortion was an excommunication, and you had to go through extra steps in addition to confession to come back into the church. But that's no longer the case. Someone, has an abortion, and of course feels very sorry, feels very remorseful, seeks God's forgiveness. That sort of excommunication is lifted as long as they go to confession. So, but you're very much right about the judgmental part, and that's something I just wanted to pick up on.
sure.
We had that synod on synodality, and our parish participated with an online survey, and the diocese recently compiled the results. And there were 11 sort of themes that Catholics across the state of Arkansas were all responded to with the surveys and the listening sessions and everything. And that judgmental part is something that it was one of the 11. So I think the official kind of wording of it was judgmental and not loving.
So how many were they? You said number 11.
There's 11 sort of topics that
Okay.
were common themes throughout the
And it was
diocese.
number 11.
It was a number. I don't think they numbered them. It was just
They
one.
didn't write it. Okay.
It was just one of the
Okay.
11.
Okay.
And that that's kind of shows a struggle not just with our church, our Catholic Church here in Pocahontas, but just the church at large throughout the state. I venture to say across the country and the world. The church has come across as very judgmental in trying to hold up the truths of the faith. We have beautiful teachings of the Catholic faith, but I think some of the times we preach these truths or we say these things that we believe, but we don't really back it up with the why. So we don't kind of give people reasonings for why we believe. And I think that can kind of come across as judgmental or not loving in how we present these things. And so that's certainly something that I think we can work on, is trying to be not so judgmental, to be more loving and caring with people who find themselves in tough and difficult situations and
Right.
having all these kind of crosses and sufferings to bear.
I'm in a good place in my life.
And I'm energized by new adventures.
I've got friends to laugh with.
And a good relationship.
But even though I'm kind of comfortable,
I sometimes wonder, is there something more?
Could God in church be what you're looking for? Come and see at CatholicsComeHome.com.
We discussed some of the health issues with the mother in the last episode, but there are situations that happen, rape and incest. Now, regardless, in my opinion, that child still does not have a choice.
That child does not have a choice.
But it's just a terrible situation. But these are situations that are out there that are happening, and it's just a tough thing, but I really think it's good that we are discussing these and always encouraging our viewers to reach out to us and bring topics up, because future episodes, we're going to be talking with Father and getting some ideas. And, another issue that was brought up is it almost looks like that the Catholic Church, and not just the Catholic Church, but I guess the other denominations, are picking the sins to talk about. We're going to hammer abortion. But what about other sins that are out there, such as premarital sex out of wedlock? I believe there's a term for that. I believe it's fornication, adultery. That is more rampant by this viewer's statement. That is more rampant than abortion is occurring. Why are we not discussing that? Why? It's like we're picking our sins to talk about. You got a really strange look on your face. You're going to go to jail for this one too.
No, I won't go to jail for this one.
Why are we talking
That's a
about
good
that?
question.
There's some good questions. We have some smart viewers out there sending us their information. So,
a sin is a sin. Sin is a sin. Is abortion worse than adultery?
well, is it?
I mean, there's something to be said about.
You're the hot seat.
Well, it's fine. I mean, that's what I signed up for, I guess.
That's right. You're the hot seat.
But I never thought I'd be on a TV show in Pocahontas, Arkansas.
Well, neither did the
Catholic
diocese
Church.
when the Arkansas
Yeah,
Catholic reached out. He even said, "This is actually happening in Pocahontas, Arkansas."
Right.
I said,
right.
"Sure is." But
Yeah.
go ahead,
Well,
Father.
and, my first reaction, just without having thought about it, is, I think there's something very, just immoral and demeaning about the taking of a human life, right? And, yes, adultery is a sin, and, when we talk about the Sixth Commandment, there's all sorts of sexual sins that are wrong and that should be talked about. But, when we're violating the dignity of another human life, it's kind of like, yes, those other sins are important to talk about and everything, but when we've got babies being killed in the womb, it's like we are here. We need to talk about this, but we need to stop this, now before we can talk about anything else. It's like this is such a high priority for us that slaughtering of innocent human lives. So I don't think it's fair enough, getting accused of focusing on one thing over another, but this abortion topic is one of the highest things we need to be talking about, because it's so rampant. It's just a terrible thing that happens, and it's a result of our Dr. Christopher West, I'm a very big fan of, talks about a pornified culture and not a sexualized culture. And we live in this pornified culture where the sex is king in a very demeaning sense. And so yes, all of these issues revolve around sexuality and trying to change our culture, being in a sort of an abortion culture mentality where it's, this issue is commonly accepted, or maybe even taught, in some places. And we as a church want to, first of all, stop that, stop this killing of innocent life, but also to try and change the culture and change the mentality, have a paradigm shift, as Thomas Kuhn would call in his philosophy of science, right? And so I don't think it's not so much that, we are trying to attack one sin over the other, or maybe are losing focus. It's this is like high priority, right here and right now. And, kind of any violation of human life, it doesn't have to be inside the womb, even outside the womb as well. If there's taking of human life, if there's reducing of the dignity of human life, that's kind of one of our top priorities. And yes, these other things are important to talk about. And, even with the pornified culture, we want to shift that as well. We want to shift the mentality and, kind of swing the pendulum back to center as it's gone, off the deep end, completely, on the excess. So, that would be that's my kind of initial response to someone who's telling us, like, why are you so focused on abortions? It's because abortion's a big deal,
Right, it is.
And this overturn of Roe versus Wade is a big deal.
It's a big
It's a
deal.
big deal.
And we recognize, that it's only a step, that there's, like I said, there's a whole cultural shift that's got to happen. There's, we want to make abortion unthinkable and unimaginable, and that's not where our culture is right now.
How do we do that as society? How do we have this change? You're exactly right, in my opinion. How do we turn this around to where people look at abortion? It was just a terrible part of our history in our country that was allowed to happen.
I think it starts with what we're doing right now.
I agree.
Of course, we, can only count on our viewers, people who are coming to Mass. I think it starts with kind of educating and catechizing, those who we can reach. Like I said earlier in the episode, not just telling what the church's teaching is. Abortion is wrong. But giving the reason, why abortion is wrong. What is our teaching on the dignity of human life, and kind of educating and catechizing those around us here. It may take a long time, but that sort of kind of spills over. And I think eventually we'll reach a lot more people. What it may take decades and decades to do, but I think that this is a start.
Right. We're getting a little bit short on time. Is there anything else that we need to bring up that you want to bring up on this topic?
Wait till next week.
Next week?
Next time.
Yeah.
Next time.
Well, speaking of our next episode, which will be our August episode, school is going to be starting back, and our CIA is coming back. So we got a lot of things. The Hill is going to get active and busy. So we're going to have a lot going on there. We may can take this topic up as it evolves and see what the needs are.
See what people send in for
Some
questions.
people send in for questions, exactly. Speaking of that, at the bottom of the screen, you'll see our email address. Send in your comments. You can just make comments. That's fine. And questions. We want to hear from the viewers. We want to hear what's on your heart, and perhaps we can discuss all that.
If you like it or you don't like it, let us know.
Let us know. If you want to bail Angie out whenever she gets thrown in jail.
Well,
just
no,
We pray that
just
never
let us know that as well. But I want to thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you for our August episode. Until then, good night.
I'm sorry we're sitting here.
We're supposed to have. You're right.
Yeah, we'll credit.
Okay, listen.
like.
Hang over to that.